Oh, good morning, everybody. Could you just let me know if you are still at university in your final year? In an earlier year? If you're on the bar professional training course? All right, that's very helpful. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about applying for the bar professional training course, what the course entails, and some of the assessments that you might be facing. You should have this handout, which you read down the page, and I thought I'd start with the application system for the bar professional training course and the dates that you need to know about. If you're in the final year of your course, the first date will already have gone by. If you're in your penultimate year, basically when you get into your final year, you should be thinking about applying for INS scholarships, because the closing date for those is the first Friday in November. So don't get into the course and then start thinking about the applying to the bar. First week in, look into INS scholarships, because that first deadline date slips by very, very quickly. Thereafter, BPTC applications will close in January, so the second half of the first term you should be applying for the BPTC. Then you'll be thinking about pupillage, and there's a pupillage gateway, which is a website, and you can see that's open during April. You should really be thinking about that in advance, because the time period for filling in the application forms is also quite short. Then there's the bar professional course aptitude test, which needs to be taken. This year that is open between April and July, and you need to also apply for INS membership by the 31st of May. The third slide is about the applications itself, and I'm just making two or three points there. You can read them for yourselves. But basically what providers are looking for are your academic qualifications. Everybody's looking for firsts and 2-1s. If you've got a 2-2, you can get onto the course, but of course it's going to be a bit more of a struggle. The second thing that I think most people are looking for, certainly what we're looking for, is a well-written application form. I don't actually mind too much what you say in relation to the various boxes that you'll find on the form. They ask you all sorts of really horrible questions, which are quite a struggle sometimes to answer. But broadly, what we're really looking for is a well-reasoned, well-written application form, rather than particular things that we want you to have achieved in advance. From your point of view, what should you be looking for from a law school that provides the BPTC? The fourth slide at the top of the second column, I think, has a few things that you may want to be looking for. You should have your own list of criteria. What is it that would actually be useful for you? It's a big decision that you're making going to the bar, and the course is expensive. Getting pupillage is very competitive, so you need to make sure that the provider you go to is going to be the one where you're going to feel happy and is going to hopefully help you achieve your aspirations. Now, the course itself. I think everybody knows that the bar is all about advocacy, putting a wig on and appearing in court. What a lot of people don't realise is actually half the work at the bar is really advisory work, legal advisory work. Solicitors will go to you in order to get your view on the merits of the case, or how long the client's going to be banged up for if they're convicted, how much do you have to pay if you lose the case. Legal advisory work. So the programme reflects that, and there are a range of skills that barristers need to be able to display pretty much on a daily basis. It's not just advocacy, it's also things like conducting conferences with clients, but also written skills. You've got to be able to encapsulate your legal advice in a written opinion, you've got to draft technical court documents and so on, and the programme reflects that and tries to ensure that you have those abilities by the time you go into pupillage. So if you turn over the page, how's that actually achieved? There are a range of manuals which pretty much all the providers across the country use. These are the City Law School manuals. I've brought along the advocacy one. We'll actually give you a batch of them. So we give, I don't know, about 10 or 12 of these types of books, all dealing with different aspects of what you need to be able to achieve at the end of the programme. And it tells you basically what is needed in order to do a good performance in whatever area it might be. On the course itself, you'll have probably a mix of lectures and small groups. You'll probably have something like 12 or 14 hours worth of classes each week, but it's pretty much a full-time course because almost every single class you need to prepare for. If you're doing an advocacy small group today, yesterday you should have been preparing the submissions that you were going to be making to the judge, or the line of questioning that you want to develop with the witnesses that you're going to be examining in chief or cross-examining in class. So there's a fair old amount of preparation required. In addition to skills, barristers also need to know their way around the courts. So there are rules of evidence, court procedure in crime and civil, and also these days, unfortunately, things like alternative dispute resolution, all of which are important and are assessed on the programme. So when you're looking at assessments, basically on the course, what happens is that if you've got a knowledge-based subject, such as evidence or ADR, you're going to face a short answer and multiple choice test. So there'll be 4 of those on the programme. If it's a skills subject, your assessment will be usually something fairly similar to the last of the classes that you had in that particular subject, but will be assessed with an exam grade being given to you for your particular performance. So if it's advocacy, you'll probably have someone playing the part of the witness who will be an actor from outside the school, and your job will be to basically demolish them in cross-examination, just as if you were in court. The last term of the programme is basically an options term, and you can see a list of options that we run. You will pick 2, and what they are actually aimed at is you choosing areas where you want to be developing your practice, hopefully where you're going to be going into chambers as a pupil, and developing the skills that you've already been building over the previous 2 terms in a more specialised area and at a higher level. Because what the programme's trying to do is to ensure that when you're leaving the course, you're on an upward trajectory, so that when you are entering into pupillage, you're actually going to be effective and useful for your pupil supervisors, and hopefully will make a success of yourself when you are in chambers. What I've got in my last PowerPoint slide, right at the bottom, is a batch of websites. I've skimmed through a lot of things very, very swiftly, but you can find a lot more information by delving into things like the INS websites and so on. I think what I'll do is pass over to Ben and tell you a bit about his experience recently.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ben Rowe. I finished the BPTC in July last year. I was at BPP. It's interesting watching or listening to Stuart, because as soon as he mentioned demolishing people in cross-examination, I could spot the people who wanted to do criminal law because you're lit up, which was quite a treat for me, because crime is my passion legally as well. Now, in terms of the process, a few things that I really wanted to cover in terms of the way you go through, and that's your course provider, what's on the course, and what it's like day to day. Firstly, in terms of the in, don't worry necessarily about making sure you are getting your decision 100% right. The ins are all incredibly supportive. If you haven't chosen your in yet, the best advice I can give is go to them, go for a tour. I went for a tour around all 4 ins, was made incredibly welcome, and then made my decision based purely upon one thing. Only one of the inns at the end of the tour offered me a cup of tea. So I chose Inner Temple based purely upon that, and I've been very happy there, but I know that my friends who have been at other inns will speak equally highly of theirs. So choose whatever suits you, whatever you want from your inn, choose. Now, one of the important things which I know is going to be covered later is scholarships. If you are going to be needing scholarships and support, then of course each of the inns has slightly different scholarships available. Do look at that. It's vitally important that you take that into account when you are choosing your inn, if that's something you're going to have to rely upon. As in fact, I would say that a majority of BPTC students hope to do. Now, inn chosen, BPTC applied for, turn up on day 1. As Stuart said, you get given a lot of books, and the first piece of advice I can give you about studying the BPTC is take a small suitcase, a bag, something sturdy with you, preferably a wheelie suitcase on the first day, because you are given all of the manuals for all of the subjects, plus you're given normally one of the criminal practitioner's texts, either Blackstone's or Archbold, or both, and also the White Book, which is basically a free weight gym workout in itself. It's 2 books and a supplement published as well, which are just giant. I turned up without a bag on my first day, and I couldn't lift what I was given. I had to do batches, and I live 45 minutes away from BPP, so that was tricky. When you actually get to the course, I would say it's daunting at first because you have all these subjects thrown at you from day one. You're studying conference at the same time as you're studying advocacy, at the same time as you're studying criminal and civil litigation. And these things, some of the things you'll be doing in advocacy in week 1, you might not be taught in civil litigation until week 8. You're bouncing all around the course all the time. The best advice I can give on that is everyone's in the same situation. The people in your tutor group, rely upon them because they'll be supportive and they'll be equally freaked out. Now, I know that the funding aspect of the BPTC is petrifying. It's a huge amount of money. And as expensive as it is, when you actually speak to the tutors about how that's broken down, it still seems unreasonable. But what is given to you as well, which so many people don't take advantage of, are the career services, mock interviews, pupillage advice, application form advice centres, all of these things which are there in your course provider centres in their buildings. So many people don't take advantage of that. These are things that you have paid for to be on the course. If you're not going along to 2 or 3 free mock pupillage interviews, if you're not getting the career service to look over your pupillage application forms, if you're not getting them to set you up pro bono work, if you're not getting them to provide any of these, including second-hand, some of the providers have second-hand court dress offers and all that sort of thing to help keep costs down. If you're not taking advantage of it, you're wasting your own money. And if you're on a scholarship, you're wasting your INS money. I cannot endorse highly enough how important it is to really take advantage of everything that is given to you during the BPTC. Before the BPTC, I applied for pupillage and got nowhere near. Afterwards, having taken advantage, I got very lucky and got a pupillage, which I'm starting later this year. But without the facilities provided to me by my course provider, BPP, I genuinely don't think I would have been in a position to get pupillage this year. It could have been another 2 or 3 years before I actually worked out I should be taking advantage of these things. Things as well like the free representation unit and all the other pro bono opportunities that are available to you. These are all things during your BPTC year because, as we've seen on the slide, you're expected to be in college perhaps 12, 14 hours a week. The rest of the time you'll be working in the evenings. There is time if you want to, if you're difficult financially or whatever, at the weekends to get a small part-time job. There's time to go and do court visits. In fact, you have to do a couple of court visits during your year and write them up about your experiences. But the time is also there to do all of the things that you want to do to supplement your CV to make pupillage applications that much stronger. And as a last point on the financing issue, I know that in scholarship is going to be covered in just a moment, but I would stress that also your providers, a lot of the providers will have scholarships available. BPP have only just launched theirs. I know that City have had theirs for a number of years, and other providers all have those same facilities. So if you haven't chosen your provider yet, look which scholarships are available. If you have chosen your provider, look immediately at their scholarship situation and apply, because I know the deadlines at BPP are coming up shortly for 2013 entrances. And the last thing, although I give absolutely no financial advice in this, is BPP have recently made a link with a firm called Investec, who and BPP will underwrite loans for the BPTC course fees. So everyone will get the loan irrespective of their credit rating, underwritten by BPP. So if push comes to shove and you do need extra funding, then do investigate that, although take financial advice, of course, before getting yourself into any debt. I'm going to be on the BPP stall for the next hour or so after this talk, so if anyone wants to come say hello, I'd be delighted to talk to you. But thank you for listening.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mason Bloom. I'm jointly head up the Specialist Barristers Unit with my fellow partner Peter at Levene Chartered Certified Accountants based just up the road in Warren Street. We currently act for over 1,300 members of the bar, from junior pupil barristers to QCs, and we are also an award-winning practice as well. I'm going to cover the main topic of funding your BPTC course, and also that applies to if you're going to do a GDL course as well. The scholarships that are that you can obtain to fund those courses, which are mainly from the four inns of court. I'm sure you're aware, Lincoln's Inn, Inner Temple, Middle Temple and Gray's Inn, and how you apply for those scholarships. Once you have completed your BPTC, various chambers, once you do obtain a pupillage, do provide pupillage awards, and they are structured in various different ways. You may be able to draw down on a pupillage award prior to actually commencing your pupillage, which will help you with funding your studies as well and your living expenses. And also various chambers give various different levels of pupillage awards as well. All of the information I am about to impart is all available in the public domain, so it is available on various websites and on the internet. When you do apply for a scholarship to fund your training courses, effectively you can only apply once to one inn, so you need to make sure that you do pick the right inn. You need to focus on the inn that you feel that you're going to have the best chances of success with that application. So you definitely need to do your homework, look at the various inns, look at their application processes, they differ slightly, and pick the inn that you feel you're going to have the best chance of success at. What are the inns looking for? They're looking for, they're going to want to be able to assess your intellectual ability, obviously your excellence in performance at university, the grades that you're achieving, your legal research skills. They'll want to see motivation, your motivation to succeed at the bar, and evidence of a serious commitment to succeed as well. Your potential as an advocate is very important. Your oral skills, examples in mooting, debating, mock trials that you've contributed and joined in with. Your personal qualities, personality, integrity, reliability, working with other people is very important. Although you're all, once you're self-employed barristers, you're all individuals working in chambers, you do need to be able to work well with your clerks and your fellow barristers as well. And also, very importantly, you need to demonstrate your financial circumstances and your need for a scholarship. I'm going to run through the various inns and the awards that they, scholarships that they offer in the order of size that funding is out there. Effectively, Lincoln's Inn offers the largest, has the largest pot of money to pay out scholarships. At the moment, they have a fund of just under £1.5 million. And that is concentrated on effectively scholarships and bursaries for the BPTC and GDL. All the awards are based on merit, and they're looking at your application forms. The Lincoln's Inn offer 70 scholarships of on average, between £6,000 and £18,000. And then for a small number, there are also awards for to fund accommodation within the inns as well while you're studying. They offer about 40 bursaries of up to about £3,000 each, and for CPE scholarships there's about 32 at around £7,000 each. There's also smaller awards that they do offer, and there's about 50 scholarships of £1,500 for the pupillage year as well. The actual application for the scholarships, not all of the inns require not all of them will want to interview you. So Lincoln's Inn won't interview all applicants for a scholarship. They'll look at your written application, and on the basis of the merit of that application, they may invite you for an interview. The The BPTC Awards closing date is the 2nd of November in the year prior to commencing your BPTC, so you need to make sure that you do get these applications in on time. And for CPE Awards, the closing date is in May of the year prior to commencing the course. You also need to take personal responsibility for making sure your referees, your references that you've need to put with your application, that they do arrive from your referees. It's your responsibility to make sure that they are submitted on time as well. And the results of the scholarships come out for the BPTC in April and July and August time for the CPE. Second, in Inner Temple, the funding is slightly lower for Inner Temple. Their scholarships vary, and the BPTC awards are not fixed each year. Last year they awarded 102 scholarships for courses. The largest award was £20,000, and the amount awarded is really dependent on the resources that you have and the need for the funding. And they had about approximately £190,000 available for the CPE GDL year. They're the only inn to actually guarantee for CPE GDL scholarships that they will also give you another award when you do your BPTC course without a further interview as well. The application closing dates are the same for Lincoln's Inn as well. Inner Temple actually interview all of the candidates for the scholarships, so they will want to see everyone that's applied. Middle Temple offer have a smaller pot of funding. They have about £1 million. That was what they paid out last year in scholarships and awards. The application process is the same for Middle Temple, and they also interview all their applicants as well. Gray's Inn offer the smallest amount of awards. They offer about £830,000. They don't also interview all the applicants, but it's very useful. They've got a very useful question and answer section on their website, which is definitely worth having a look into before you make any applications. It will probably answer a lot of queries, questions that you might have that are relevant to the application and the application process. I'm sure you're all aware it's a really fiercely competitive market out there. You do need to be realistic about your skills, your intellectual ability, but obviously if you feel you've got the qualities that the bar's looking for, I wish you all the very best of luck with your applications. I'm going to pass over to my fellow partner Peter.
Thank you, Mason. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Peter Grossmark. Together with Mason, as you've heard, we head up the barristers team at Levene Accountants. We act for over 1,300 barristers, and what I'm going to try and do in 5 minutes is tell you everything about tax that you need to know, so it's a slight challenge. What I'm making the assumption of is that now I'm taking it the next stage. You have all now got pupillage and you're about to commence your second six. So I know I'm jumping ahead, but I'm just going to give you a few basic golden rules which, if you can try and remember, in the future will save you money. It's as simple as that. Now, first important point. The date of the commencement of your second six is when you technically become self-employed. That is the date when you're available to earn fees. One has to register with the revenue authorities within 3 months of that date. That's what the rules require. Strangely enough, at the moment, they talk about that as a rule, but there's no penalty for not doing it, but that's going to change shortly, I'm sure. So the theme you're going to hear from me is one has to be efficient and deal with things, because if you don't, there are fines and penalties. It is onerous being an independent barrister, a freelance barrister. There are 4 taxes which are going to be potentially relevant. Income tax, Class 2 national insurance, Class 4 national insurance, and VAT. I haven't time to go into all of these, but as you're getting the feel for it, it is onerous and you need to take specialist advice and deal with some simple things. So I'm going to start with a few golden rules. The first and the most important, you are going to have to be paying your own tax. That no one likes to hear, and you've heard it now. So you must put money aside for tax. It's something that intuitively, without even me saying it, you all knew. I can't tell you how many barristers we see that don't do it. Despite Mason, my expertise, we can do a lot to help you, but we won't pay your tax for you. So you must put money aside for tax. We recommend that once you start freelance work, you put 20% of your fees received into a separate interest-bearing account, and you write on it tax, and at Christmas or other times you don't touch it, you wait till your accountant tells you. That is without doubt the most golden rule, and if you take nothing else away from this session, if you do that, then you'll be okay. Okay. For VAT, there's a rule that states that if 3 years prior to the commencement of your second six, and that's quite a generous period, you've incurred expenses on capital items, you can still reclaim that VAT. So potentially even now, if you have, and I'll define a capital item in a moment, you have acquired a capital item and you, once you commence your second six, are using it and have the original VAT invoice, you can reclaim that VAT. Capital items would be, I call it things you can kick, not that you should kick them, wig and gown, wig tin, laptop, PC. So if you bought a tablet, laptop now, and within 3 years you become a freelance barrister and you have the original VAT invoice and you're continuing to use it for business purposes, you can get that money back. The awards that you will receive. The award you receive in your first six is tax-free. The award you receive in your second six is taxable. Chambers know this, and wards are weighted sometimes slightly more to the first six. It's an important question to ask when you're talking to the various chambers as you walk around the show at the moment. What are the awards? How are you weighting the awards? You have a choice as to your accounting reference date. A very simple choice. Most people incorrectly, and we've already this morning, Mason and I, spoken to a few people on stands nearby who say, yes, we do our accounts to the fiscal year, the 5th of April. That is the worst possible accounting date. Their accountants perhaps were not specialists and didn't realise. By simply choosing the 30th of April instead of the 5th of April, throughout the rest of your working life, you give yourself ongoing cash flow advantages. Put another way, if you had a colleague who chose the 5th of April and you had the 30th of April and you were throughout your life to compare the tax you paid, forever, throughout the rest of your working life, you would pay less tax. That's quite a big deal for a very simple decision one makes at the beginning. If one makes the wrong decision at the beginning, i.e. the 5th of April, you're unable to change it. It's in stone. As a freelance barrister, you would have to prepare a tax return. A schedule to the tax return is an income and expenditure account. The tax return must be filed by the following 31st of January, as otherwise there are fines and penalties. It is important to be aware, an income and expenditure account, you have your income and we take off your expenses. It's important to be aware of what expenses are allowed for business. Again, I'm going to rattle through a brief list. It's worth now, even at this early stage, thinking, if I was a freelance barrister, would I get tax relief on the expenses? And if you think you could, the expenses have to be recorded and you have to keep the receipts. So as I said before, it is onerous. In no particular order, I'm just going to run through a list of expenses just to whet your appetite. Any expenses relating directly to chambers, which initially would be clerk's fees, and when one becomes a tenant, the rent. Travel costs between chambers and court, and of course young barristers are going throughout the country and it is always, or usually, the largest expense. Subsistence is occasional food when working unsociable hours, and young barristers do work a lot of unsociable hours. If one is lucky enough to have a car and you're using it partially for business, the business use of using the car. Communication. Broadband internet, mobile phones, the business proportion of it. Printing, postage, stationery, chambers provide a lot, but there's stuff that you'll buy yourselves. Computer costs, IT costs. Research, we've heard about white books, but Blackstone's, Archibald, these, apart from being very heavy, are very expensive. Subscriptions, the Bar Council subscriptions, Combar, any other associations you would join, the indemnity insurance, a cost close to our heart, accountancy fees, course fees, CPD, training costs. interest on loans, but only loans taken out subsequent to the commencement of your second six. So any funding that you put in place now, the interest on that funding, there is no tax relief. These expenses to be incurred for business have to be incurred wholly and exclusively for business purposes, and those are the buzzwords. The only expense which is excluded is entertaining. So sadly, if you wine and dine what you consider to be a solicitor who's going to give you lots of work in the future, there's no tax relief on it. At Silver Levene, we do the first set of accounts at no cost in an attempt to obviously promote ourselves, but also at that stage when money is short, it enables you to get a low-cost start. The tax system is very complex. We have a memory stick which provides detailed information. If you come to our stand, and please do come to our stand, because not only can you enter a competition to win an iPad, but you can take the memory stick with you, which expands on what I've just said. Thank you all for your attention.